This is the blade section of the carcass. Now I'm going to show you how to remove it. Underneath that bottom rib, I'll just cut straight through the meat, get my handsaw, cutting through the blade bone, all ready for boning. And here we have the whole blade. What I'm going to do for you now is show you how to take the foreshank off and produce the gravy beef. First of all, I followed the contour of that bone along until I hit the cup joint where the bowler blade is situated and the foreshank is situated. I'll open that up with my knife and have to spin it around just a little bit, just on the edge of your block, to break that little bit of a sinew there. Then carefully cut around the bone to produce your foreshank. To remove the gravy beef, carefully follow the contour of the bone. Spin the bone around so you can get a better angle at the other side. There we have our gravy beef off the bone. To slice the gravy beef up, just trim the ends and slice to your required thickness, ready for dicing. Here I have the remainder of the bowler. Now all I have to do is remove the bone, cut along that bone there, around, through between the scapular bone, releasing the meat from the bone as I go. Then we have to turn the bowler around and repeat the process. And there we have your semi-boneless bowler blade. To produce the rest of the cuts from the blade, firstly I have to remove the piece of silver skin located on top of the undercut. I remove the undercut off the scapular bone. Careful to follow that seam all the way to the edge. To remove the chuck tender and the bowler from the scapular bone, I just mark either side of the scapular bone. Careful not to dig too deep in there. Around the front of the blade and turn him over. Feel for the ridge. That ridge we've got to mark down either side. That's a bone there on the scapular bone. And there we have our chuck tender. Now it's just a matter of just removing that little bit of fat and selvage from the chuck tender. And there we have a lovely lean piece of beef. To remove the scapular bone, all we have to do is mark down the opposite side of that ridged bone from the chuck tender, turn the bowler over again, and there we have the scapular bone. And that's what we're looking for, a nice lean piece of beef, the oyster blade and the bowler. What I want to do now is separate these two primals. So finding the very edge of that oyster blade there, I'll just get my knife and slice straight through, following that seam. There we have our two primals, our oyster blade and our bowler blade. To get a blade steak, first all I have to do is remove any excess fat off the top, turn it over, any excess underneath. The grain runs this way across the primal, So therefore we must slice across the grain, shortening up the meat fibres to make sure we end up with a nice tender steak. Here we have the oyster blade. What I'm going to do with the oyster blade today is make 2 flat iron steaks. First of all, we must remove any silver skin or cartilage off the underside. Just slide your knife underneath the cartilage there, removing as much of that silver skin as possible, and any excess meat on the side must be removed. Turn it over, remove any excess fat. All the fat must come off. And then sliding your knife underneath that silver skin, remove all of that. Then, once we've trimmed all the excess fat and sinew off the outside, we must remove that cartilage from the centre of the steak. Start off by just gently running your knife along that first thick part of the oyster blade, trying not to leave too much meat on the sinew. You'll see there we've picked up that nice little cartilage. It's just a matter of running your knife carefully along to remove it. There we have 1 flat iron steak. Then we repeat the process by turning it over and removing the remainder of that sinew from the flat iron. Any excess that we've missed, just trim up accordingly. Square up your ends, and there you have 2 beautiful flat iron steaks.